Today, we're diving into a battle that's happening every single second of every single day. And this isn't some battle happening far away. Nope, it's happening right inside your own head. This is the war for your attention.
Man, does this sound familiar? It's like a perfect diagnosis for right now, isn't it? That constant twitchy need for the next notification, the next refresh. It's a feeling I think we all know way too well.
And this isn't just some vague feeling. This quote comes directly from a recent rapid review published by the National Institutes of Health. They were exploring this phenomenon that the internet has, kind of grimly, nicknamed brain rot.
Okay, hold that thought about brain rot and our constant need for stimulation. Now, let's switch gears and look at this piece of advice from what feels like a completely different universe. It's all about debt and morality and faith.
So where does this come from? A manual for a religious camp meeting. So on one hand, you've got cutting-edge cognitive science, and on the other, you have this timeless spiritual guidance. Seems random, right?
So what on earth could a study on digital addiction and a religious manual possibly have in common? Well, as it turns out, everything. They're just two different languages trying to describe the exact same human struggle for focus. Let's start by unpacking the modern diagnosis.
All right, let's get into it. First, let's look at the modern diagnosis for this feeling of being constantly overwhelmed and distracted. Welcome to what's being called the age of brain rot.
You know that feeling? That persistent brain fog? The sense that your focus is just shattered into a million tiny pieces? If you're nodding along right now, you are definitely not alone.
So this term, brain rot, it's not a formal medical diagnosis, but the NIH review uses it to describe this very real state of cognitive decline that's fueled by our digital lives. It's that brain fog, that inability to concentrate. It's a cultural label for a real problem.
So how did we even get here? I mean, this isn't just a failure of willpower. It turns out our brains are being actively rewired by the technology we use every single day.
We're living in what experts call an always-on culture, and that creates this thing called continuous partial attention. Basically, it means we're paying a little bit of attention to everything, all the time, which means we're never truly focused on any one thing.
And just look at what researchers are most worried about. It's so clear. Digital addiction and excessive screen time are by far the biggest slices of the pie. They're dominating the conversation. These aren't just side issues. They're at the very heart of the science on our mental health. An MIT scholar named Sherry Turkle has a great name for this. She calls it the tethered self. It's this idea that even when your phone is in your pocket, your mind is still kind of connected to it, always on alert for that next buzz or message. We really are forever linked. And the result of being so tethered is this very real thing called disconnectivity anxiety. You know that panic you feel when you lose cell service or your battery dies? That's it. It's the fear of being disconnected, of missing out on something important.
Okay, so modern science is giving us the diagnosis. But what if a solution has been hiding in plain sight for centuries? Let's take a look at that ancient blueprint.
So, the camp meeting manual brings up this ancient verse. And at first glance you think, okay, this is about money. But hang on, because the authors apply this wisdom to a much broader and way more modern kind of debt. And this is where it gets really interesting. The manual takes that idea of debt and points right at our mobile phones, calling them a prison in your pocket. The argument is that it's not just the financial burden, it's an attentional one. All that worry and distraction robs you of your peace and keeps you from focusing on what really matters. And when you look at what this ancient text warns against, the parallels are just wow. It talks about letting distractions take over your mind, mismanaging your time and health, lacking discipline. It's basically saying your life and your focus are things you need to be a wise steward over. Sound familiar?
So what happens when we stop seeing these as two separate ideas and start putting them together? Well, we can actually forge a compass to help us navigate this crazy modern world.
I mean, this card says it all, doesn't it? Modern science calls it continuous partial attention. The manual calls it poor stewardship of time. Science talks about dopamine-driven feedback loops. The manual warns against worldly distractions. Science identifies internet stress. The manual pushes for a life of peace. They are absolutely describing the same battle, just using different words.
So the really cool part is that we can combine these two perspectives into a powerful, practical toolkit. We can do a digital detox, right? Limit screen time. We can cultivate mindfulness, like through meditation. We can start thinking about our lives in terms of stewardship, treating our attention like the valuable asset it is.
And we can actively seek out solitude, Follow that advice to shut the door behind you and just disconnect from all the noise.
And all of this leads to a final, really powerful question. It's inspired by an old story about finding incredible power in the simple things you already have.
So in the story, a prophet asks a poor widow this question, and she feels like she has nothing left at all, except this one tiny, almost insignificant thing, a small jar of oil. But that one small thing ends up being the key to her entire future.
So that's the question for us, right? In the face of all this overwhelming digital distraction, what's your small jar of olive oil? What is that one small, simple resource you already have that could be the starting point for taking back your focus? Maybe it's 5 minutes of silence. Maybe it's a walk without your phone. Or just reading one page of a real book.
Because in the end, both modern science and ancient wisdom are pointing to the exact same truth. This isn't about finding a better app or some new productivity hack. The battle for your attention, for your focus, for your peace, it's going to be won or lost offline.